Aloha mai kako, good afternoon. Mahalo for joining today's AEN HOU decision making. It's Monday, February 12th, 2024, and we're convened here in room 224 and video conferencing, which includes the audio and video of remote participants that's being streamed live on YouTube. In the unlikely event that this hearing is cut short, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business on Wednesday, February 14th, 2024 at 1:02 p.m. in conference room 224 during AEN's time slot, and a public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. Okay.
Since we just have one measure now.
Okay. We only have one measure on today's deferred DM, which is Senate Bill 3047 relating to environmental impact statements. Chairs having conferred, the recommendation for the Committee on Housing will be to pass this measure with amendments. First, to remove the exemption for agricultural lands, and second, to defect the date for further discussion. Members, any question or discussion? Okay, if not, I don't have the vote sheet. We're waiting on the vote sheets. Okay.
You can just write it down.
Yeah, I forget who's on it.
I can't do it because I don't remember.
I can just write it down on the thing if you want me to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So for SB 3047, the recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Hashimoto is excused. Senator Kanuha.
Aye.
Senator Awa. No. And Senator Aquino is excused. So the recommendation is adopted. Yep.
Okay, same recommendation for AEN, and the chair appreciates its co-chair dealing with the ag land exemption, and also for defecting the date to give us a little bit more time for continuing the conversation on this bill. Any discussion? Chair votes aye.
Thank you, Chair. Chair votes aye. I will be voting with reservations because it does need a little bit more work. Hearing that, Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes with reservations. Senator DeCoit? Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Awa?
No.
Chair, you have 4 in favor and 1 opposed. Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members.
And that brings us to the end of this agenda. We're adjourned.
Thank you, Stan. That's it. Welcome to the 102 agenda, joint with decision-making, joint with transportation and culture and the arts. We have 2 items on the agenda, and we'll go ahead with our decision-making, and then when Senator Lee and his quorum shows up, then they can do theirs. Okay. So the first one up is SB 3237, facilitates the control and eradication of invasive species and pests, establishes a plant nursery licensing program, requires the DOA to designate certain species and pests for control or eradication, imposes certain limits on imports and transportation, updates the method by which the department's noxious weed list is updated. Okay, folks, for AEN, the recommendation will be to pass with the amendments that were put forth by the Attorney General, CGAPs, and also the Department of Agriculture. It's an extensive list here. I'm not going to go into the whole list here. So are there any questions or concerns? So Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Vice Chair.
Recommendation is passed with amendments. 3237. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator DeCoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Awa?
Aye.
Thank you,
Chair, you
members.
have 5 in favor.
Thank you very much. And then on SB 2769, on climate change, requires all state, county, and private bus operators to upgrade to zero-emission buses by 2045. And we did get the amendments that were made by TCA. So the recommendation will be to pass with the amendments. The PUC recommendation authorizing any changes to admin rules to comply, and that it would apply to the state and counties only. Any discussion? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair.
On Senate Bill 2769, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator DeCoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes? Senator Awa?
No.
Chair, you have 4 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you very much, members, and that concludes the 102 agenda. We'll see you at 131. Aloha and welcome to the AEN hearing. Another exciting adventure into the world of agriculture and the environment. So hang on to your seats, folks. Let's see. It's February 12th, 1:32 p.m. And we're here in room 224 and video conferencing. In the unlikely event that we get shut down because of tech problems or whatever, we will reconvene February 14th, 2024. That's on Wednesday at 1:02 p.m. here in this room, 224. And because of our 90-minute time limit for hearings, there'll be a 1-minute time limit today for all testifiers. And we're starting off with Senate Bill 2360. Okay. Relating to cesspool conversions, establishes and appropriates funds for 2 full-time positions to implement the cesspool compliance pilot grant project established by Act 153 in 2022 and makes an appropriation for the project for fiscal year 24-25. All right, so first up is Department of Health.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chairs, committee members. John Nagato, Department of Health. The department stands by its written testimony in support of the measure with comments. I'll be available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Next is HOU-AEN Hawaiian Civic Club. Hulu-Mamo.
Yeah, aloha, Keone Shizuma, for HOU-AEN Hawaiian Civic Club. Just stand on a written testimony in support.
Thank you, Keone. Next is Darren Lerner from UH in support. Anyone else, either online or in person, that would like to testify?
Yes, Chair.
Please.
Fern Holland on behalf of Papa, just testifying in support.
Thank you. Thank you, Fern. Members, any questions?
This one, Chair.
Okay, Senator.
Department of Health, please. So with the appropriation of $5 million in grant awards of say $30,000, that is what, about 167 cesspools that owners can obtain the funds from. What can you report on the success of the pilot to date?
So the pilot that started
Prior.
last year, without getting into all the technical terms of like encumber and all that, in the first couple of days, I guess it was spoken for, because that's how many applications you do that. I think it was like 250 at 20,000 per. So we had all the applications plus a waiting list, but then because they have to go through the process of getting their engineering started, there's some that had done the work, so we had that cut off when the app started. Basically, money has gone out and money is still waiting to get processed.
So how do you prioritize who gets them? Because I know the challenge has been when we did this, I think 4 years ago, that the people that lived in rural areas were being really challenged because they literally had to have the upfront money. So how do you guys help the ones that don't have the upfront money? Do you have something in kind of like one program or process?
At the time that the previous program was started, I wasn't in the position that I'm in now as the acting, so I was just a staff
So
member.
would you entertain the idea that if you guys did on selection and people did apply, that you guys could literally say, okay, you've been approved. Here's a letter from the Department of Health saying you've been awarded, so that they could use that letter to go back to the bank, basically guaranteeing the loan and the reimbursement process going back.
I wouldn't see why that would help, because I know that we issued kind of like an eligibility letter. And yeah, I think the bank needs something to know that they're basically done.
Yeah.
I agree. But I don't, because I wish I could speak for like how the process was done last year. I mean, yeah, that's a big concern for us.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, moving on. SB 2413, requiring the Board of Ag to submit a report on the percentage of ag lands that are suitable for farming and actively farmed and certain dollar amounts relating to lease transfer between lessees. Department of Ag.
Good afternoon, Dexter Kishida, Deputy at Department of Agriculture. We stand in our written testimony with comments. Specifically, there's just one item numbered in section 2 that we suggest to be removed. Thank you.
Okay. Next is Brian Miyamoto from Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair. The Hawaii Farm Bureau will stand on its written testimony and support.
Thank you, Brian. Also Joseph Ramos in support and Jacqueline Ambrose in support. Anyone else online or in person wanting to testify? Members, any questions?
Just one, Chair.
Senator Decoy.
Dexter, please. So Dexter, if you guys conduct the study, can you also find how many state agricultural leases are used primarily as residents or non-agricultural businesses or are unused?
We can identify that as well in the report.
Can you, yeah, okay, thank
So
you.
please add that in. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Moving on to the next measure, SB 2422, relating to ag, appropriates funds for CIP projects per the ag infrastructure of the state, a food and product innovation network, and outstanding debt on the Waiahole water system. First up, Department of Ag.
The department stands in a written testimony. Strong support.
Thank you, Dexter. Wendy Gady from AADC.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We stand in strong support of this bill, and I just wanted to add that the original bond price for the Waiahole irrigation system was $8.5 million, and our farmers have already paid $9.6 million.
Thank you, Wendy. Myung Oh from the Local Food Coalition. In person support. Mike Munakata from Ulupono.
Good afternoon, Chair Gabbard, Vice Chair Richards, members of the committee. Michael Monikata here on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. Thank you, Chair, for hearing this measure. I think this is a very, very important measure to help educate about some of the needs across our ag sector. This bill identifies roughly $356 million in asks from the department and ADC, the two agencies and entities tasked to help grow agriculture. We need to find ways to support our irrigation systems. We need to find ways to develop water resource. We need to find ways to develop land resources to get people onto these lands. If we're serious about food production and increasing our food security, infrastructure is one of the most important things that we can really make investments into. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Lauren Zerbel on Zoom.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. We'll stand on our testimony and strong support.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions?
Just one, Chair.
Okay.
ADC, please. Hi, Wendy. Hi, so are all these projects ready to go once the funds are approved?
With the exception of the Food and Product Innovation Network, that's actually to start the design, but yes, the UHCDC is ready to go. All the other projects are ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Hang on, Wendy. Chair.
Yep. Richards.
Just clarifying, you said required to pay back 8 million, they paid 9. Clarify that, please.
Wow, the seat just got really warm. Over the period of time, the bond has been refinanced. However, the farmers have not seen the benefit of the refinancing. So the cost of paying the interest and paying the full price back is, we still have another, it's currently at 4.4 million that still needs to be paid back.
Can you give us a one-page summary of that and deliver it to the chair?
Absolutely can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, members. Next is SB 2366, relating to neonics, classifies neonics pesticides as restricted use pesticides and establishes a list of chemicals that belong to the neonic class of chemicals. First up is Department of Ag.
Thank you very much. Dexter Kishida, Deputy at Department of Agriculture. We would like to offer some comments. Specifically, imidacloprid has been our primary treatment or recommendation for treatment for coconut rhinoceros beetle, either through topical application or chemigation, depending on the formula. So our last comments in the last paragraph maybe sum it up best, that one of the fears is to limit the tools for farmers today will reduce the amount of food that may be produced. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Tevis from the Hawaii Crop Improvement Association. In opposition, Vern Holland from HOU-AEN.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity. I'm just lightly expanding on my 4-page detailed written testimony in support of this measure. A few things that I noticed after doing a bunch of research this week and diving deeper into this is that it may actually be easier to ban outdoor uses of some of these products rather than go through the restricted use pesticide process. As I outlined in my testimony, many other states have already done this. I think we're talking about over 10 states now that have implemented some sort of ban on the outdoor use. If not, then the RUP classification and the exemptions would need to be detailed out to exempt both the indoor use for home use for pet treatments and stuff, and then also implicably clarifying that the use for invasive species infestations should be exempt from this. I think the language needs to just clarify that. The target is large scale outdoor use of these products, and I included quite a few references and details, and I'm available for any questions should there be any.
Okay, thank you. There are quite a few others here. There's actually 41 in support and 2 opposed. Are there any other testifiers, either in person or online, on this measure? Please, Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Tim Lyons with the Hawaii Pest Control Association. And I would just like to note that the neonics category is just so large. It includes so many different pesticides, and it includes many that we use on a regular basis, an everyday basis in homes for cockroach control, for bed bugs, which is not going to be a problem, I don't think, with bee infestation, I hope. For bed bugs and others. Some of these are even gels, that the gel is actually put on pipes underneath the sink for restaurants, particularly for cockroach control. And to make those restricted use pesticide hardly seems appropriate. Thanks.
Thank you. Members, any questions?
Question. Oh, I want to testify.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bill. Before testifying this, Chair, we did also submit on the previous bill testimony. And if you didn't receive it, we'll get it to the office. We did submit it online. The Farm Bureau respectfully opposes this measure. I think you heard from the Department of Agriculture. I know they said comments. If you read their bill or read their testimony, it sounds like oppose. Pest control industry also I believe, would oppose this. You heard the different uses for the neonics. Treatment for dogs and cats, bed bugs, cockroaches, termites. Are we suggesting we require applicator licenses for all these uses? I mean, I think that'd be very difficult. Again, it's a tool. You heard the Department of Agriculture talk about tools, talk about possibly using it to treat coconut rhinoceros beetles. We are trying to grow agriculture. This is a tool that our farmers and ranchers can use, agriculture sector can use. So we respectfully oppose this measure. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comment.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Senator Coy, you had a question?
Thank you. DOA, please. Thank you. So Dexter, we heard the different treatments for neonicotinoids. Your department handles all neonicotinoids in banning, or what about household?
Let me make sure I understand. Sorry, Dexter Kishida, Department of Agriculture. Make sure I understand the question. That if there were an outright ban, our department does do all of the regulatory enforcement for pesticides, short of it bumping up to the EPA. The other piece, if it's a restricted use, we are also the ones that would handle licensing, et cetera, for all pesticides.
So if it's, how many cases have you folks had to date on neonicotinoids that have impacted? Like a complaint? Follow-ups on those complaints?
I don't know if we have that, but I can call up our pesticide branch manager to see if he has that. If not, we will get back to you. Do we have any, or do you know off the top of your head if we've had any complaints on neonics?
Good afternoon, Chair Gabbard, Vice Chair Richards, members of the committee. Greg Takeshima, Pesticides Program Manager. Thus far, or at least over the last year, from my recollection, we did have one neonicotinoid-based complaint. It was basically we did the inspection and the application wasn't found to be in violation of any pesticides rules.
How much of an impact? I know that the biggest fight we've been fighting has been coffee bearer borer. How bad of an impact would it be to that industry?
Please.
Okay, specifically for coffee berry borer and coffee leaf rust. So coffee berry borer, the main actual pesticide that we use is it's a microbial product. It's not a neonicotinoid. There are some products, neonicotinoid products based for CBB and coffee specifically, but it's not as effective as the microbial based product.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Chair.
Okay, Senator Richards.
Yeah, might as well sit there. The coffee, or excuse me, the rhinoceros beetle, primary use is neonicotinoid, or primary pesticide of choice is neonicotinoid.
Yes, correct.
If that was removed from your tool belt, what would you be using, and how effective would that be?
Actually, the amount of tools we have for coconut rhinoceros beetle are thin. There's not many that are effective, and that's the problem. There's a lot that could be used on palms, but they're not effective. Without imidacloprid, we have some pyrethrins and a pyrethroid, but nowhere near as effective as imidacloprid is. And other than that, there are things that we aren't able to use it for crown treatments on Oahu or other prohibitions. So we're down to a pyrethrum and a pyrethroid that has been tested and shown to be somewhat effective.
To add to that, the pyrethroids and actually all of the pesticides that we have available for CRB, they do have rate maximums, annual maximums that we can use per product or per acreage. Once you get to that maximum, no more use for that product, right? We have to move to a different mode of action to ensure that the bugs don't gain resistance.
All right, thanks, Chair.
Senator Rhodes?
Thanks. I'm sympathetic. It's just, I mean, questions I asked it on other bills last year was the bee situation in Hawaii is actually better than it is most places, which is a blessing. But most of the continent, I think, bee populations are cratering, and they think that it's largely due to overuse, I guess, of neonicotinoids. I mean, how do we balance the two needs? Because it seems to me like there's a lot of damage to be done if we overuse the things, neonics.
I think one thing, and I'll let Greg maybe expound further, but I know for coconut rhinoceros beetle usage, for example, there can be no flowers or fruit when you apply. So that is one way to ensure that our bee populations are kept safe. But I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, sure. So, as noted in our testimony, many of the neonics do have the bee warning. It's basically like a picture of a little bee, and it ensures that it is enforceable language on many of the labels, and it ensures that applications shouldn't be done when bees are most active, generally in the mornings, and midday is when those applications shouldn't occur. So, we do send out inspectors if there are violations, if somebody makes a complaint or if they do show up on our agricultural use inspections, we would go and enforce those label violations.
So on the continent, do they have the same sort of labeling up there? It's national labeling, right?
Yes, it is federal labeling.
Okay. All right. I won't belabor the point considering the length of the agenda, but thank you, Chair.
Chair, one more question.
Senator DeCoy?
Mr. Lyons, please. Thank you for being here. So, how do you guys treat termite infested homes, and how many people do we treat necessarily for termite infested homes or prevention of termites?
Well, thanks for the question. Really the termites are in two different areas. One is drywood termites, which is what you generally see people wrapping their house in a tent for. And the other is ground termites or Formosan termites. And for that, they wind up treating the ground or perimeter around the house. So they're outside doing this, spraying. Or they're using bait traps where they implant them into the ground.
So all of that would be banned
Well,
if this measure passes?
or you'd have to have a restricted use person
Permit.
applying it, which is expensive.
So in all, how many years have you been doing this?
I think it was 84.
So in all the years have you been doing this, have you guys had classes with the Department of Ag in pesticide, restricted use pesticide classes that have allowed you guys to use those types of RUPs safely?
Yeah, we're pretty big on education, actually. We do generally a seminar a month for our members, and we have about 85 companies across the state, and we get generally 100 to 150 people attending. Then we also have an annual conference where there's like 15 different seminars in one day to choose from, and that's covering everything, not just termites. But they're big on education, and when you are certified, you have continuing education requirements that you must meet. So you've got to pay to go.
I guess if we're gonna treat it for termites, what kind of damages we're looking at, in whether it be on small dwelling versus somebody with maybe 3,500 square feet, 4,000 square feet?
It's really kind of run the gamut. I've seen situations where perhaps just some underboards are damaged and they can easily be replaced, and others where it basically said the house is a tear down. And typically those are ones where people have just not paid attention to what's going on in their house, or maybe they're a renter and don't care. But the UH has estimated, I think, about $8 million a year for termite damage.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Next is SB 2432, establishing a food manufacturer tax credit. Defines qualified taxpayer as a manufacturer that produces value-added processed ag or food products. And first up is Department of Ag.
The department stands on our.
Thank you. In support, right? So Department of Taxation. Thank you, Liza. Tom Yamachika from the Tax Foundation for Hawaii. Got to turn on your.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation of Hawaii. Thank you for having me. We have submitted written comments. Just to expand on those, we think that there are parts of this credit that can and should be tightened up if you want to move forward with it. We have, like, the definition of qualified taxpayer, the very last line of added text in the bill. A food manufacturer that produces value-added processed agricultural or food products. We don't really know what that is, and if you parse that one sentence, it can be read to cover almost anything. So we would ask the committee that if they want to, if you want to consider this and move it forward, I think we need to tighten that up a little bit.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Fern?
Again, Fern Holland for HOPA in support. We weren't unable to get written testimony on time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Fern. Brian?
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. We did submit written testimony. We do support the measure. We support the intent of the measure. If you read the preamble, it's talking about agriculture and value added and importance. You've heard us many times. However, if you look at the definition of qualified taxpayer, there's no reference to needing or requirement to use local agriculture or local crops. So we do suggest an amendment, adding that back in. It's been in previous bills. I understand sometimes there's some legal challenges with that, but if this is an agricultural related, a Hawaii agriculture related bill, then it should have some component of local agriculture within the measure. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Okay. There's any questions? Moving on, SB 2399 exempts the gross proceeds received by a farmer for the sale of produce from the general excise tax. Department of Ag.
Thank you, Dexter Kishida, Deputy Department of Agriculture. We offer some comments to this bill. We would love to see the inclusion of protein producing operations in this as well. Otherwise, we do defer to the Department of Taxation. Thank you.
Thank you. Department of Taxation. Thank you, Liza. Attorney General.
Good afternoon, Chair Gabbard, members of the committee.
Aloha.
Deputy Attorney General Tammy Kaneshiro. Under the bill, a farmer eligible to claim the exemption is defined in part as a person or entity that cultivates land in the state to grow produce. The exemption will be available to farmers who cultivated land in the state to grow produce, but not to similarly situated farmers who cultivate land in another state to grow produce. Because it could be construed that the exemption bestows a commercial advantage on produce grown by farmers on land in the state versus produce cultivated by farmers on land in another state, the bill may be subject to challenge under the Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution. To address this, we suggest amending the definition of farmer on page 2, line 16, by removing the words "in the state." Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Tam. Next is Tom Yamachika, Tax Foundation for Hawaii.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika, Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We did submit written testimony and will be available for questions.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Members, any questions?
Yeah,
Senator Richards?
Yeah, I think Attorney General. I think the general trend, at least for me in this whole session, is how do we support local agriculture? And keep running into this definition of what local agriculture is. So can you reiterate that again or state again? Because I would think that if we're talking about local production, we should be able to exempt local production. But is it the people or is it the land? Which one are we trying to work on here?
So in this particular case, it is the persons or entities that cultivate land in the state to grow produce. So we are differentiating between these people in the state versus people outside of the state. So produce is the commerce item, and they would be treated differently, those that produce in the state, on land in the state versus produce that is out of state. And that's where the potential violation of the Commerce Clause comes into play.
If we were to specify that a business registered within the state, a business or a DBA within the state, is that one way to work within the confines of the law?
You know, I would have to say we would have to look at it as a whole to see what you're saying, like kind of depending upon what the change is. But we do have some that had talked about authorized to do business in the state or something like that, you know, that we've seen come across that we haven't testified on.
Okay, because again, the intent is to help local agriculture. And so we're trying to find a way. So I appreciate that. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Senator DeCoy?
I guess the question is that if it's challenged.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. The question is
If it's challenged,
if it's challenged.
that it is local produce grown and cultivated versus.
So here it's the item of commerce, so it's produce, and what in this particular bill, it says the farmer eligible to claim exemption is defined as, in part, as a person or entity that cultivates land in the state to grow produce. So that person versus the person who cultivates land in another state to grow produce. So that's where the
Differentiation. But what I'm saying is that if it's challenged by the individual out of state.
Or if it's challenged by anyone
Anybody.
else, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to SB 3026 relating to pesticides, replaces representatives from the sugar and pineapple industries with representatives of the coffee and diversified ag industries. First up is Department of Ag.
Thank you very much. Dexter Kishida, Deputy Hawaii Department of Agriculture. We stand in strong support of this bill. We definitely need to clean up our committee so we can proceed with our necessary rulemaking that's necessary with some bills that passed last year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Anna Wizarek with CTAR, UH.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, rest of the committee, Ania Wieczorek, CTAR, University of Hawaii stands in support on our testimony, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
I pledge to get your name right by the end of the session.
You're doing very well. I'm already impressed.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Okay, next is Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Are they here? Keopu Mielitz in support. Anyone else wishing to testify?
Yes, Chair.
Please.
Again, Fern Holland, on behalf of HOU-AEN, in strong support of the measure, was unable to get written testimony.
Thank you, Fern. Okay, members, any questions? Moving on, SB 2790 appropriates funds to the Department of Ag to hire 2 full-time positions to collect, manipulate, and graph data to build an ag data dashboard for public consumption and a 1-year study on ag markets for Hawaii farmers. Okay, 2790. First up is Hawaii Farm Bureau. They are in support. Nicole Galassi from the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Not present, okay. Department of Ag.
Department staff strong support.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Moving on, SB 2349, relating to leaf blowers, prohibits the sale, offer for sale, or operation of gasoline-powered leaf blowers, increases the amounts of fines for offenses against leaf blower restrictions, and provides for the forfeiture of gasoline-powered leaf blowers on a 3rd violation. Keith Hayashi from Department of DOE. Comments, okay. Department of Health.
Good afternoon, Senator Gabbard and Vice Chair Richards. Gabrielle Grange, representing the Indoor Air and Radiological Health Branch. We stand on our written testimony, specifically with respect to the difficulties of enforcing this, as leaf blowers are used, they're not scheduled ahead of time. And so it would mean our inspectors would have to be out looking sort of randomly for folks. So we see some issues with that with the current staff that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Attorney General.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. I'm Lyle Leonard, Deputy Attorney General. The department has identified a preemption issue with the bill. Insofar as it's applied to gasoline-powered leaf blowers, it may set up an emission standard preempted by federal law. Thank you. Available for questions.
Okay, thank you. Tina Yamaki with the Retail Merchants of Hawaii.
Aloha and good afternoon. I'm Tina Yamaki with the Retail Merchants of Hawaii. We respectfully oppose this measure as it would mean that on or before July 10th, that's when the governor has the last day to sign bills into law. Retailers could no longer sell these items, and businesses and communities in urban areas who own gas-powered leaf blowers could no longer use them and have to get rid of it. And most likely, there's going to be a lot of gas-powered leaf blowers in our landfills. This measure would also likely impose especially hardships on small locally owned businesses, especially if they're unable to meet the deadline. Not all stores are able to send their gas-powered leaf blowers outside of Hawaii to a sister store. This would mean that the local businesses would have to sell their inventory at a deep discounted price or at a loss, or they become trash. And this measure has a potential to kill these local businesses as well, as they are continue to struggle trying to keep their doors open with the high cost of goods, shipping, the minimum wage increase, insurance, and other operating expenses.
Thank you, Tina, for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Members, any questions?
Question. Department of Health.
Question. Senator Coit.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Sean Haruno with Department of Health, Noise Section.
Sean, thank you. Are electric leaf blowers comparable in power to the gas leaf blowers? And are they readily available? And how?
As far as I know, on a personal level, the electric leaf blowers are effective. But as far as the difference in the decibel levels, that depends.
So, I mean, I don't know if this is a question for you, but how do you compare the electric blowers come in price to the gas of one leaf blower?
Ooh, I'm sorry, I can't answer on that price.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, moving on. Next
Uh,
measure.
Chair,
Senator
real quick,
Richards?
yeah, Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Thanks for being here. Concern for replacement and actually getting the job done. Perspective, similar to what Senator DeCoit was talking about, effectiveness, decibels, et cetera. Comments?
Yeah, so our guys, this is basically a school level issue. So all of our custodians and our groundskeepers at the school level, they are finding it that the electric gas blowers aren't as effective. And the other thing is they just have larger campuses. So Kapolei, for example, is about 48 acres, and Campbell High School is about 36 or so acres. So for them, when they're taking out these the gas leaf blowers, they're able to service a larger area. Their concern is with the battery life on some of the electric ones, they're going to have to either carry multiple batteries or have to go back and get that changed out. So just a little less efficient, and then as well as just needing to phase out. And so the current leaf blowers that they have, they'd have to get rid of and then buy electric.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Chair, I got one question for maybe Department
Department Ed.
So Ken, how many schools that you guys have on the neighbor islands that have challenges with the electric blowers? I mean, I know we get challenges with the electric vehicles, and we're trying to get them fixed, but it's trying to get them fixed and then make sure. I know the airlines don't let us take lithium batteries. How many schools would be impacted by that?
Well, so we have 258 schools. Not all of them necessarily have leaf blowers, but all our high schools, definitely because of their larger size campuses, would most likely have leaf blowers. So, you know, they would have to phase it out. I mean, it's not we're not opposed. It's not going to be a huge burden, but it is something that we need to take into account. It's going to be an expense that would have to be taken care of.
Okay, thank you. And then I can do a follow-up with Department of Ag. So Dexter, I know a lot of the farms have gas powered. What is the impact to some of those farms? And then if it did have to change out, who would compensate the electric blower for those that have bought it?
Thank you, Dexter Kishida, Deputy Department of Agriculture. And, you know, I believe something like this may impact Hawaii's Right to Farm Act, or that language, because some of our ag properties don't have electricity running to them to recharge any battery cells. So it could impact some farmers a lot and other farmers maybe less so. But also if you're on hundreds of acres and needing to carry 3 or 4 battery packs to recharge may be difficult. So I believe this would infringe a bit on our right to farm.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Next is SB 2558, relating to invasive species, imposes a penalty for knowingly selling invasive plants or plants containing invasive species. First up is AG, Attorney General.
Good afternoon, Deputy Attorney General Travis Moon providing comments. We provided comments in our written testimony stating that this bill is not necessary because the penalty section in HRS section 150A 14 subsection A currently penalizes violations of chapter 150A. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Department of Ag.
I'd like to say what he said. No, the department stands their written testimony with comments, similar to the Attorney General.
Thank you. DLNR, Chelsea or not?
Aloha Chair Gabbard, Vice Chair Richards, Senator DeCoit, Senator Rhodes, Chelsea Arnott on behalf of the Department of Land and Natural Resources, and we'll stand on our written testimony and support. And we offered a few comments on the language and just want to recognize that we're supportive of measures that help prevent the spread of invasive species in our state. So mahalo for the opportunity.
Okay. Next is Christy Martin from Group on Alien Pest Species, CGAPS.
Chair, may I give the CGAPS testimony?
Pardon me?
May I give the CGAPS testimony?
Sure. State your name.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Stephanie Easley with the Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species. We have submitted written testimony in support of this bill. We do propose modifying some of the terms so that they use the defined terms and language currently in Chapter 150A. We also note that the prohibition on transporting plants would fall on the consumer because they would be the ones moving the plant. And so having a separate, clear penalty for the seller makes a lot of sense to us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify on SB 2558? Please.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of ROAR, Rescue of Animal Rights. Wishing to comment. So there needs to be invasive species management from the city, the state, and the federal level. And the city proposal is being heard right now. Statutory provisions as per this bill with definitions can provide a framework for making budget decisions based on program effectiveness. And the state has taken different steps to define terms which reflects strength of implementation. However, I'd like to note in the discussions surrounding invasive species, there is no work initiated with USDA, which manages international trade and shipments, which is a direct root cause of the invasive species, because those species are coming in from other nations. From the USDA website, and I quote, USDA works with foreign governments, international organizations, and the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative to create international standards and rules to improve accountability and predictability for agriculture trade. USDA helps facilitate trade policy. So the question here now from ROAR is, why wouldn't the state of Hawaii strengthen its work with USDA and get federal funding to assist instead of appropriating funds from the state level for biosecurity if it can access federal funding?
Thank you. Your time's up.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Members, any questions?
Yeah, one, Chair.
Senator Richards?
Yeah, for Attorney General. You stated not needed. Actually, introduce yourself.
Deputy Attorney General Travis Moon.
Okay. You stated not needed because we have the laws in place already.
Yes.
So obviously invasive species is a big deal. So, and maybe this, you'd have to give an opinion here, but sounds like enforcement is an issue more than the law.
I have no comment on that. I can only say what the law is saying.
Okay, but as far as this wouldn't add anything more to what we're doing?
This bill, no.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on, SB 3261 relating to ag establishes a local ag transportation cost reimbursement program to reimburse eligible ranchers and farmers a portion of their costs to transport livestock, livestock products, ag commodities, and certain supplies under certain circumstances. First up, Department of Ag.
Thank you, Chair. Dexter Kishida, Hawaii Department of Agriculture. We strongly support this measure and have a few comments. While the USDA does support the long haul and with the reimbursement program, this really is a gap-filling measure as we look at the inter-island needs. So we thank you very much for this bill and again stand in strong support.
Thank you. Lauren Zerville from Hawaii Food Industry Association.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Okay. Nicole Galassi from Hawaii Cattlemen's Council.
Not present either on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure?
Yes, Chair. Again, for Reverend Fern Holland testifying on behalf of HOPA in support of this measure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fern. Members, any questions?
Just one. Dexter, please. So Dexter, the bill reads as establishes a local agriculture transportation cost reimbursement program. Are there any other programs that do on reimbursement on transportation?
For inter-island specifically, I don't know of any. The only one I do know of is the USDA selects specific states were one of them that reimburse for costs, but that's from West Coast to here for transportation costs.
So I know that USDA Farm Service Agency does a transportation reimbursement program, and it's also inter-island as well. Yeah.
I didn't realize. Okay.
Yeah, it does inter-island as well, but they need all the help they can get. Thank you.
Well, correct. And my understanding in that pool, it's a pool, and we don't get to reimburse everybody for all expenses.
It caps
Correct.
at, I
So
think 1 million for the Pacific Basin.
correct, correct. So we still need this even.
How
even
much
so that-
more do you think we need to help?
You know,
'Cause, yeah, I know it caps it, and not everybody can get it.
I'll need to talk to FSA and my team to calculate what that difference is
Yeah.
in total. But this is a really good start.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can you get us those numbers, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is SB 3361, relating to renewable fuel, includes oilseed cover crops into the cover crop reimbursement pilot program established by Act 312. First up is Hawaii Farm Bureau. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, we're moving on to SB 1590. Relating to ag, requires the Department of Ag to assess the steps necessary for the state to supplement federal authority to perform meat inspections within the state. Requires the Department of Ag to assess the steps necessary to transfer full authority over meat inspections from federal authority to the state. Appropriates funds for 3 full-time equivalent inspector positions within the Department of Ag to perform meat inspections. First up is Brian Miyamoto from the Farm Bureau. In support, Department of Ag.
Department of Ag stands on its written testimony support.
Great, thank you. Nicole Galassi from Cattlemen's Council on Zoom.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Any questions, members? Okay, moving on to the last measure on the 131 agenda is SB 572. Allows the Department of Ag to declare a biosecurity emergency in certain circumstances and with the approval of the governor. Outlines the terms of a declared biosecurity emergency, requires the department to implement certain requirements for ag commodity importers, allows the department to fine ag commodity importers who fail to comply with the requirements, also allows the department to subpoena necessary documentation from ag commodity importers relating to a known or suspected infestation of pests. Chelsea Arnott from DLNR.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, Senator Coy, Chelsea Arnott, on behalf of the Department of Land and Natural Resources, will stand on our written testimony and support, but do recognize the testimony submitted by Department of Agriculture and the coordinating group on alien pest species, that there is some clarification needed in this, but just recognizing the power of being able to declare an emergency for new pest incursions when they do arrive here in the state. And that a study conducted in 2002 at the Kahului Airport, on average, 1 new insect or plant disease is introduced to Hawaii every day. So this is a huge issue that we need to address. So mahalo for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chelsea. Department of Ag. Thank you. Christy Martin from CGAPS. Thank you, Stephanie. Nicole Galassi on Zoom.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
In support. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure, online or in person? Members, any questions? Okay, we'll take a brief recess for some decision making. Okay, reconvening the 131 agenda. And some decision making on SB 2360 on cesspool conversions. The recommendation of the chair will be to pass with amendments from the Department of Health. Any questions or comments? Chair votes aye.
Thank you, Chair. On 2360, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator DeCoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Awa? Aye. Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you very much, members. SB 2413, requiring the Board of Ag to submit a report on the percentage of ag lands. The chair's recommendation will be to pass with the amendments from the Department of Ag to strike section 22B. Okay, any discussion? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator DeCoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Awa? Aye. Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. And on SB 2422, on the CIP projects, the chair's recommendation would be to defer this one indefinitely. There was a technical error in the heading, which I won't go into the details, but anyway, the committees on Ag and Environment and Waterland passed the same bill, SB 2932, on February 5th. So we will defer SB 2422. And moving on to 2366, having to do with neonics. Chair's recommendation will be to
Chair, discuss before we go.
Sure, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the concern and intent of this measure. That being said, I'm also concerned about the future for agriculture. And as agriculture strives to step away, I get nervous if we take things out of the tool belt. For that reason, though I'm all supportive of reducing pesticides over time, I think to make a categorical removal is problematic to our state. So I will not be supporting this measure.
Chair,
Yes.
discussion as well. Likewise, I share the same sentiment, knowing that many of the tools have been reduced. I'm more concerned about those that with housing issues, a lot of complaints have been coming in that if it happens where neonics are to be banned, I think the problem we have is enforcing. The challenge has been always about enforcing it, make sure people are using it properly. But again, with the damages that occur in a time when we need to double food production, you remove the tools of this, then you just as well remove all the tools and realize later that we're going to be in a bigger bind than we are in trying to grow food and trying to protect people's homes as well as schools that have been totally dilapidated due to termites and other infestations that we have. So for those reasons, with all due respect, Chair, I will be voting no. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so chair's recommendation.
What is the whole aim on?
Chair's recommendation will be passed as is. Vice Chair. Chair votes aye.
Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes nay. Senator DeCoit?
No.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Awa?
Aye.
Chair, you have 3 in favor. The motion is adopted.
Thank you very much. SB 2432. Relating to ag, establishes a food manufacturer tax credit. Okay, the chair's recommendation will be to pass with the amendments from DOE tax regarding inserting the credit and the cap amounts. Any discussion? Chair votes aye.
On the motion 2432, Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator DeCoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Awa?
Aye.
Chair, you have 5 in favor. The motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next one is SB 2399, exempting gross proceeds received by a farmer for the sale of produce from the general excise tax. The Chair's recommendation will be to pass with amendments from the Department of the Attorney General. Any concerns or questions? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair.
On 2399, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes? Aye. Senator Alwal? Aye. Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 3026 relating to pesticides, replacing the representatives from the sugar and pineapple industries on the reps from the coffee and diversified ag industries. Let's see. Yeah, the recommendation from the chair will be to pass as is. Any discussion? Chair votes aye.
On 3026, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes? Aye. Senator Alwal? Aye. Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. And moving on to SB 2790, appropriating funds for the Department of Ag to hire 2 full-time positions to collect, manipulate, and graph data and to build an ag data dashboard. Okay. Yeah. Chair's recommendation. Are there any discussion? Chair's recommendation will be to pass as is. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Alwal?
Aye.
Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. SB 2349 relating to leaf blowers. Members, we need a little bit more time on this one. I'd like to defer decision-making until Wednesday, February 14th at 1:02 p.m. here in room 224. Moving on to SB 2558. Imposing a penalty for knowingly selling invasive plants. Okay. Recommendation will be to defer this indefinitely based on the testimony from the Attorney General and from the Department of Ag. Moving on to SB 3261. Establishing a local ag transportation cost reimbursement program to reimburse eligible ranchers and farmers a portion of their costs. Chair's recommendation, any discussion? Chair's recommendation will be to pass as is. Vice Chair. Chair votes aye.
On 3261, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Alwal? Aye. Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Okay. Moving on to SB 3361, oilseed cover crops, adding them to the reimbursement pilot program. The chair's recommendation will be to pass as is. Any discussion? Chair votes aye.
On measure 3361, pass as is. Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decoit?
Aye.
Senator Alwal?
Aye.
And Senator Rhodes? Aye. Sorry, screwed up that order, guys. Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. And then SB 1590, requiring the Department of Ag to assess the steps necessary for the state to supplement federal authority to perform meat inspections within the state. Chair's recommendation will be to pass as is. Any discussion?
Yeah, Chair, real quick.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate the testimony that came through from the Farm Bureau with the intent. I think it's the right direction we need to go, especially when we talk about the invasive species, managing that for protein going forward. I would ask that this be maybe a date defective, because I think it needs a little bit more work on it.
Okay. Okay, I'm fine with that amendment. Put a effective date of July 1st, 2050. I'll add that. So the recommendation will be to pass this with an amendment, affecting the date to July 1st, 2050. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator DeCoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes? Senator Hua? Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you very much. And then SB 572, allowing the Department of Ag to declare a biosecurity emergency in certain circumstances. The chair's any discussion? Chair's recommendation will be to pass as is. Chair votes aye.
Thank you, Chair. On Senate Bill 572, Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator DeCoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Reservations.
Reservations. Senator Awa?
Aye.
Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. And that concludes the 131. We're going to hang around. If we have a few DMs for the 132 agenda, we'll start just momentarily. Okay, convening the 132 decision-making for AEN. For decision-making on a number of items, we'll start off with SB 2961 relating to ag workforce housing, requiring the Department of Ag to establish an ag workforce housing working group to address the shortage and challenges of ag workforce housing in the state. Okay. And for this one, I'd like to recommend that we pass as is, but I would also like to include in the committee report the recommendations from the Department of Ag to undertake data and information gathering, survey farm operators, administer to the needs of the working group, and hire consultants with the expertise in addressing ag workforce housing needs. And secondly, to request funding for the Royal Kunia Ag Park CIP project that provides 24 farm lots with housing as a proof of concept to address ag workforce housing needs statewide. Any discussion?
Just a quick comment, Chair. Yeah, I think this is a direction, definitely a direction that we need to go to get housing for ag workforce. We're talking about doubling food production, but unless we support that, meaning housing, infrastructure, et cetera, we're not going to get there. And there's generally that theme throughout a lot of the legislation we're working on. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator DeCoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Awa?
Aye.
Chair, we have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 3025 relating to hemp, repealing the requirement for additional rules by the Department of Ag to address nuisance issues, including smell, noise, and excessive lighting arising out of the activities of hemp growers. Chair's recommendation will be to pass this measure as is. Any discussion? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. Just quick discussion. I'm going to be voting with reservations. I support the intent, but we're struggling with the whole hemp, and we're trying to find a way to make it work for our state. So I am comfortable supporting it with reservations. So Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes with reservations. Senator DeCoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Awa?
Aye.
Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Okay, on SB 3079, amending section 269-6, HRS to clarify that the PUC shall consider the effect of the state's reliance on fossil fuels on generation-based greenhouse gas emissions and may require a greenhouse gas emissions analysis for energy projects that do not result in generation-based greenhouse gas emissions. Chair's recommendation would be to pass this measure with the amendments that were suggested by the Hawaii State Energy Office and also the PUC, which were identical. Any discussion? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator DeCoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes. Senator Alwal. Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 3315, requiring Department of Ag to use consistent units of measurement in its summary to the public on the amounts of RUPs used. Chair's recommendation will be to pass as is. Any discussion? Chair votes aye.
Chair, I support the fact that, we have to be mindful and watch what happens on impacts to the health of kids and stuff. A 1/2 mile radius in districts that are growing food, like up in Kula and Popolani, and those areas will be heavily impacted, as well as, again, there's other considerations about enforcing. We got to enforce, people got to be educated. But again, I think the 1/2 mile is huge. I think we need to work on this more, but I can be voting with reservations.
Okay.
Sure. I'm going to follow comments on that. I agree. Again, agriculture is working to reduce the use of herbicides, pesticides, but I think there's still work needs to be done. I support the intent, but I'll be voting with reservations as well.
Thank you. Okay, so for the vote, chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes with reservations. Senator DeCoit?
Reservations.
Reservations. Senator Rhodes? Senator Alwal. Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. SB 3316 relating to pesticides requires monthly rather than annual reporting of RUPs. 3316. The chair's recommendation will be to pass as is. Any discussion?
Sure, same issue. Again, my worrisome is, as we saw on the north side, where people's properties were targeted on use of such pesticides. I'm worried about retaliation on some of this. Hopefully, the reporting issue of the geospatial data will also protect those when having to disclose those whereabouts. I think that's going to be a huge issue that we're going to have to. But again, I support the intent of the bill. I'm just worried about retaliation on some of these guys that are using tools to help with addressing the needs for food and doubling of food production. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator.
Comment?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. I'm coming at it from a little bit different perspective. I did definitely support the intent, and I really like the data gathering of this, because with good data comes good decisions. But the frequency bothers me, and I agree that annual reporting is pretty lax, but I think monthly reporting is pretty tight. I would like to see maybe a quarterly rather than monthly. And for that reason, I'm voting in with reservations. However, like I said, I support the intent because I want the data. I want to see what we're actually doing. But I'm also mindful of the businesses that have to pay for this. So I'll be voting with reservations.
Okay, thank you. So chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes with reservations. Senator DeCoit?
Reservations.
Senator Rhodes? Senator Alwal? Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 3365, relating to plant care components, requires Department of Ag to certify treatments performed on soil, dirt, wood chips, compost, and filter socks. Let's see here. So the chair's recommendation will be to pass this measure with the amendments that were made by the Department of Ag. Any discussion? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Catching up. Recommendation as is. Chair votes aye.
No, pass with amendments?
Pass with amendments, sorry. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator DeCoit?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes? Senator Alwal? Aye. Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Okay, thank you. And then moving on to SB 3247, creating an income tax credit for transportation costs incurred by certain taxpayers who ship produce and ag goods between counties. So the recommendation will be to pass with the amendments by the AG's office, as well as DOTAX. Any discussion? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair.
Measure 3247 with amendments. Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decoit.
Aye.
Senator Rhodes.
Aye.
Senator Alwal.
Aye.
Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Thank you very much. And SB 3302, for taxable years beginning after 12/31/2023, creates an income tax credit for qualified expenses of eligible farmers, ranchers, and fishers. The chair's recommendation will be to pass the amendments that were made by DOTAX. Any discussion? Chair votes aye.
Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decoit.
Aye.
Senator Rhodes.
Aye.
Senator Alwal.
Aye.
Chair, you have 5 in favor. Motion is adopted.
Okay, and then on the final measure relating to SB 2814, relating to water infrastructure, directing the Department of Ag in collaboration with ADC and the counties to conduct a water infrastructure study for the state. We still are gathering information on this, and so I would like to defer decision-making on this measure till Wednesday, February 14th at 1:02 p.m. here in room 224. And with that, I will adjourn the 132 agenda.